you were to say to me, what's your goal in this today, it would be to share with you what's going on in the research out there and how this stuff is working in districts now and what style means today. All right, then when I got into high school and began working in high school, I began attracting into my classes the folks they would call hall rats. You know, all the kids that nobody else liked. And I loved them, and I thought they were as bright as they could be and could never figure it out. And so I spent a lot of time in high school, which is what I love the most of any place I've ever taught. And then left to go to Northwestern to get a doctorate in something called learning theory to find out why these kids were so different. Now, you have to understand, my belief was so strong that they were all equally intelligent that I just wanted to prove that to the world, you see. And so my focus then, when I graduated from Northwestern, was on learning styles alone. I really believed that was the independent variable. See, when I came back from the doctorate, it was the worst snow in the history of Chicago. Some of you may remember. We were shoveling our roofs because they were afraid they would cave in. I have 5 sons. All 5 of them were born like in 4.5 years, and they all went off to school at the same time. I know. That's what we did then. I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. So everybody had gone off, and I was in that big house wondering what my husband and I were going to talk about for the next 35 years, you know, and thinking the whole world would want me because I had a doctorate and nobody did. I was too expensive, right? So one of the guys had taught under me when I was the high school principal, called a math teacher. And he said, Bernice, I read your dissertation. Where's the brain stuff? This was 1973. This was Northwestern University. This was the doctorate in learning theory, and there was no brain stuff anywhere in what we had done. Imagine that. Right? So I said, well, who would I call? Jerry Levy, University of Chicago. I called, she answered the phone. I told her what I was doing. She said, I'll send you my latest article. But don't ask me how to apply it, she said. So it was 103 pages long. I circled every word I didn't know on the first page, and there were 15. And I looked them up in the dictionary, and they weren't there. So I called her back. She said, you need a medical dictionary. So I went and got one, and I began to read. And I was fascinated. I had spent 2 years teaching in Bellwood, Illinois, 15 Down syndrome kids. And those were the 2 years that I learned how to teach. And I had done a lot of crazy things to teach those kids language skills and place value concept and things like that, right? And as I was reading Jerry's stuff, I could see why it worked. So I was making gigantic leaps of logic, of course, as my learning style tends to do, based on what had happened with those kids and how successful we had been. So I got very excited. I read everything in her bibliography. I read from January of 79 till October 18th of 1979. And I remember the day, because what came in the mail, so I kept writing away to people and saying, send me what you have. And Valerie Hunt from UCLA, who was in physical education, sent me her research, 4 different ways people move. And it fit so perfectly on Carl Jung and David Kolb and all the folks I had been reading that I went out and got butcher paper. And I hung it on a great big wall in my house and got great big fat magic markers and wrote these 18 researches all up, classified them, and stood back and looked at it. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, I've come over the years not to trust myself when things look good to me in the middle of the night. So I went to bed, and the next morning when I got up at 10 o'clock, very left-brained husband was standing next to me, and he said, Bernice, what is that? I said, that's the most important thing I've ever done. He said, what are you going to do with it? I said, I'm going to call up everybody on the butcher paper and tell them about it.